Tonight in Los Angeles, tragedy at the WCC tournament. Loyola Marymount senior Hank Gathers collapsed on the court. A short while later, he was pronounced dead. Good evening, everybody. I'm Chris Berman. Usually the Sunday Night Hour Sports Centers are the most fun show of the week, especially for some of us who haven't been in this chair for about a month. But tonight in Los Angeles, a story that transcends all merriment that is usually the world of sports. Hank Gathers, senior from Loyola Marymount, the 11th leading all-time scorer in NCAA history, led the NCAA in scoring last year, led the NCAA in rebounding last year, collapsed during the first half of his LMU's WCC quarterfinal game in Los Angeles against Portland. At 6:55 West Coast time, he was pronounced dead at Daniel Freeman Marina Hospital about an hour and 20 minutes after his collapse. This was a scene about 7 minutes into the first half. The Gathers with the stuff, and LMU led 25-13. Then got back to play defense. You'll hear a whistle, and you might want to turn your head. Some of you at home will not like to see what's coming up. After the whistle, Gathers, seemingly fine, takes a couple of steps and collapses. Writhing in pain, attended on court by team personnel, tried to get up once and collapsed again. The second time this season he has collapsed at home at the Gersten Pavilion. Happened back in December, the game against Santa Barbara. Then this scene, mother and sister rushed from the stands. A stunned crowd, a stunned arena. He was taken off onto a stretcher, went to a hospital, and an hour and 20 minutes later, Hank Gathers was pronounced dead, as we said, at 6:55 Pacific Coast time. He had missed a couple of games after that first collapse. They were wondering whether it was a regular heartbeat was the story, but he convinced doctors that he was okay. They cut back on his medication, and Gathers early in February scored 44 points in one game against St. Mary's. There was no warning that such a thing could happen again. But tragedy has struck out in Los Angeles, and Chris Myers is at the hospital right now. Let's go to Chris for the latest. Chris, the scene out there?
All right, thank you, Chris. It's a chilly night here in Los Angeles at the Daniel Freeman Hospital, and we are joined by the athletic director of Loyola Marymount, Mr. Brian Quinn. And, of course, moments ago, Paul Westhead here, some of the players were here from the Loyola basketball team, and they left the area. Dr. Weiss is inside meeting with Hank Gathers' mother and brother who happen to be here. The question that most will ask is, should Hank Gathers have been playing basketball after that initial heart ailment in December or that fainting spell?
Well, a complete medical clearance was granted for him to participate in all athletic endeavors, so the answer, certainly would be yes.
The feelings right now with the family, with Paul Westhead, can you describe them?
Well, they're distraught, deeply saddened, as you would expect. They're, of course, under the circumstances, it's very difficult to describe the pain they're feeling. But, the family's together, and I think they're a close family.
From what we understand, the seizure taking place on the court, he was conscious at some time before he was rushed to the hospital here in the marina, where Dr. Mason Weiss, the cardiologist, acting cardiologist at the moment, took over. Of course, later pronounced him dead. Was there much talk of between here and there that there was a chance to revive him?
I couldn't really tell you that because, a doctor would have to tell you, one of the attending physicians would have to tell you that. I really couldn't answer that question.
Okay. Well, Dr. Weiss could answer that question, and he is with us. If you can step up here, Doctor. And after the fainting spell and the heart problem in December, there were questions if Hank Gathers could play basketball or should play, and he obviously did play again. He was cleared, understandably so. Was this the correct move?
I really can't comment on that. I wasn't his attending physician at the time. I just took care of him from the time that he landed here at the Marina Hospital. So I think that would be better posted to his doctors.
He was under medication.
He was under medication right up to and including today, as far as I know.
Is there a chance that that medication could have contributed to the problem?
Unlikely. I gather that he improved from what I was told on the medication.
Now, back in December, Hank Gathers was said to have an irregular heartbeat or an accelerated heartbeat. Is that correct?
I really don't know the details as to his rhythm problem at that time in detail. One of my associates who was looking after him will be back in L.A. shortly, and probably will talk to you then.
What were the chances from the time that the seizure took place at Loyola Fieldhouse and the time he was brought here to the hospital of reviving him?
I think the chances were good in that everything was appropriately done at the game. Immediate resuscitative measures were taken, and in somebody in his physical shape, every and all possible efforts should be undertaken, and were for about an hour and a half after he initially arrested at the game. Unfortunately, much to everybody's chagrin, there was never any evidence of spontaneous heart activity that we could measure on a monitor, or blood pressure or anything else like that from the time that he arrived over here.
To your knowledge, family trace of heart problems?
I really haven't had a chance to even talk to the family in that regard.
The chances when someone plays basketball, the kind of sport that it is, does it not put more strain on the heart than the average or maybe a person who does not play basketball?
This individual was playing basketball at the extremes for many years, and this event obviously had not occurred up until tonight, so that would be speculation. These people are more than used to playing under extremes of physical conditioning, and they don't die usually.
I guess another way to ask the question, would his chances have decreased of having heart failure had he not been playing basketball?
That would be pure speculation on my part. You know, people who have rhythm problems of the heart, who are under therapy, can have cardiac arrest, whether or not they're playing basketball or just sitting in a chair. So I really think that I can't really answer that.
Can you, in simple terms, again, Doctor, describe when he was pronounced dead exactly what took place for the layman out there who doesn't understand the heart and all of the intricacies and how it works?
I think basically he collapsed at the game. He had a palpable blood pressure to the physician who was there at the scene initially, and he was somewhat responsive for a few seconds. I'm not really sure the exact time factor. Subsequently, his breathing deteriorated. He was noted to have some seizure activity, and from the first available recording right at the scene of his rhythm, he had no rhythm that was compatible with life, and from that point onwards, full resuscitative measures were undertaken on the court, in the ambulance, in the emergency room by the initial emergency room physician, and subsequently by myself. All told, probably an hour and a half of full resuscitative measures without any evidence documented of any cardiac rhythm or blood pressure or anything else. Even under those prolonged circumstances, there's still a chance that he could come back, and that's why things were continued for that duration of time, but unfortunately all to no avail.
All right, well, thank you very much. Under these stressful situations, Dr. Mason Weiss, the acting cardiologist here at the Daniel Freeman Hospital in Marina del Rey. Hank Gathers, who turned just 23 years old last February, is dead, pronounced dead this evening in Los Angeles. Let's go back now to SportsCenter.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. And Hank Gathers has many a friend around the college basketball world. You don't have to be really just involved with college basketball. Tell by the way he has handled himself that he was a little bit different. One of his best friends, he grew up in Philadelphia, among Bo Kimball, who was also a teammate of his at Loyola Marymount, Lionel Simmons, the great all-time player, the senior for LaSalle, who was in action tonight, semifinal action in the MAAC, and he was informed during LaSalle's game this evening against Siena a short while ago, and that was his reaction. He could not continue playing LaSalle's game against Siena this evening in Albany, as he was overcome with the news, as so many of us have been. Chris Fowler, college basketball maven tonight. You had a chance to get to know him a little bit. You went out to Los Angeles recently. He's a different guy, wasn't he?
Tremendous guy, very likable guy. Wanted to be a sportscaster. Was very involved in internships and student television, radio programs in Loyola Marymount. Extremely popular with his teammates. And I'll tell you, when I spoke with him last month, he was very concerned about his medication. Doctors had him on heavy doses of medication after that first collapse in December, and he was very sluggish. He couldn't play basketball, and that troubled him more than anything. I mean, he loved basketball more than anything. Really just a couple of months away from being drafted in the NBA, a certain first-rounder and a certain millionaire in basketball, and I think that it obviously hurt him not to be able to play basketball. He was able to convince the doctors to slowly back away on the amount of medication he was taking, and as the medication was taken off, he became more and more effective on the basketball court and became more and more the old Hank that his teammates remembered. All of them, to a man, said it wasn't the same Hank after his first collapse and after the amount of medication he was taking. But apparently, the medication after being removed was not enough to stop the second collapse on the court. Chris.
Yeah, he convinced the doctors of all this, and we heard the doctors at the hospital this evening. It's too early to speculate exactly were he not playing basketball would this have happened, and that's a dangerous speculation at this point. But did he have a feeling that anything else might happen?
No, he was looking to the future. He felt 100%. He said he had no idea this would happen again. Obviously, when you're a basketball player, you want to focus on the game and on getting back to 100%. But no, neither him nor Coach Paul Westhead nor his teammates felt there was any chance of a recurrence. And as I said, as the medication was backed off of Gathers, he felt much more like 100%.
You know, the case of Terry Cummings comes to mind. Great player at DePaul, I guess when he was with the San Diego Clippers. And actually, he's built very similar to Gathers. They kind of play the same sort of game. And he was in question with his heart at the time. And then, of course, is going on to enjoy tremendous success with the Bucks and now the San Antonio Spurs. Did that name ever come up in conversation with Hank?
Yes, it did. We talked about Terry Cummings. He was very encouraged that he had been able to recover. It's funny you mentioned it. Many people say there's a similarity physically between Terry Cummings, not only facially, but also in his big, bulky physique. When you look at a guy like Gathers and you see that powerful body and his ability on the court, it's almost inconceivable that he could have a weakness in the heart that would lead to this kind of a tragedy.
Well, tonight the sporting world learned or was reminded of something that you don't have to be involved with in sports to understand, that life itself is so very fragile. And someone with so much hope, Hank Gathers, dead shortly after his 23rd birthday, collapsed on the court tonight in Los Angeles, pronounced dead an hour and 20 minutes later, a little less than an hour and a half ago. SportsCenter will continue with more right after this.